Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Meat for the Grinder. This is a series of Necromunda Battle Reports for our Sector 7 Turf War, which is our current Necromunda Dominion campaign, and this is Battle Report number 53, and this one is a Battle Royale multiplayer scenario that is fought between my four friends, Iron Major, Sergeant Sigmarine, Lady Domina, as well as Brother Grimm. All four of these players will be playing in a meat scenario, which is a fan favorite that's on this channel. Pretty much four different gangs will have members of their gang try to survive wave after wave of flesh-eating crazed cannibals as they try to be the last gang standing and to earn themselves reputation as well as wealth and power in our Sector 7 Turf War. Iron Major is playing the Prophets of Rage, which is our studio's Corpse Grinder Cult gang. Sergeant Sigmarine will be playing the Sleeping Dogs of House Delaque. Lady Domina will be playing the Killjoys of House Escher, and my friend Brother Grimm will be playing the Pelago-Slam Kings of House Goliath. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, you can see exactly which members of the gangs will be participating in this scenario, and you will also see a roster list of each of the gangs, so that way you can see exactly what they're taking. So if you want to peruse those lists, go ahead and pause, take a look at your leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright people, the scenario rules for this one is meat. Basically what ends up happening is that each of the gangs gets D3 randomly selected fighters, and basically what ends up happening is that each player must deploy their fighters within 12 inches of the battlefield center. Afterwards, each player then takes in turns deploying Crazed Cannibals within 6 inches of the battlefield's edges. There should be at least 3 times as many Crazed Cannibals as there are fighters on the battlefield. Now we have a couple of special rules in this scenario. The first one is drawn to the scent of death, and that states that at the beginning of each end phase before moving the Crazed Cannibals, D3 plus 3 more cannibals arrive on the battlefield. They deploy within 6 inches of the table, and players take in turns moving them. Basically, the way that we win this battle is that to last 9 rounds, and or whoever ends up being the last gang standing, whatever one ends up happening first. The last gang standing, or whoever takes out the most Crazed Cannibals out of actions, if multiple gangs make it to round 9, ends up winning this one as well. For rewards, when we talk about our experience points, each participant earns 1 point of experience for surviving this scenario, and you earn additional D3 experience points for each fighter managed to survive to the end of the game, so all the way to round number 9. Also, any gang that manages to survive at the very last ending earns D3 points of reputation. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about deployment as well as battle plans real fast. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, all 4 of my friends are playing on a 4x6 table with all kinds of terrain spread throughout the entirety of it. We have towers in each of the corners, we have a bridge that goes through the center of it, we got walkways leading from higher ground to lower ground. It is an absolute chaotic urban mess. And by the way, it should be noted that all this terrain is actually made by one of our players. Iron Major, who is our resident terrain wizard, is the guy who created all this terrain on here, and it's all hand built, made from styrofoam, cardboard, sand, wood glue, and paint. So Iron Major was kind of neat because all my friends were playing around and we were all talking to Iron Major about all the cool stuff that he did to build this terrain. And if you guys like his terrain, put a comment down below because he definitely likes looking at them and he appreciates everything you guys say about it, all the positive stuff. So anyways, as I was saying before, this is going to be a 4-way battle. So what ends up happening is that in the center of the table is the 4 different gangs of my 4 friends will be playing on this one. Since I'm not personally participating in this scenario, I'm just the arbitrator for the campaign, so all I'll be doing is taking photos, and I will also be controlling the Crazed Cannibals, which will be a lot of fun to do as well. So I'll be attacking my 4 friends and making this happen. I also have to take a moment to actually thank my friends real quick, because what ended up happening is my gaming area is very small, so cramming 4 people in here to play this battle and to actually have everybody move their pieces and then leave so that way I can take photos and that way they come back in and work on it, I really do appreciate you guys for doing that to me. It is is a major pain to do that all the time, but at the end, if you look at the battle reports, they look fantastic because they look finished and there's no weird stuff in there. It's just the miniatures and the scenery. It looks really professionally, guys. So I really appreciate you guys putting up with that. Thanks again. And that's a message for my gaming group, so thank you very much, you guys. As you can see as well, the perimeter of the battlefield, we also have our Crazed Cannibals. Now, as for the actual battle plan on this one, I really don't know because, like I said before, I'm just taking photographs and I'm playing the Crazed Cannibals. My friends are the ones playing the actual characters, so I'm not really sure what the overall battle plan is. But this is pretty much how the battlefield is laid out. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. So first of all, we'll talk about the Pelago-Slam Kings of House Goliath. My buddy Brother Grimm managed to roll up 2 members of his gang to participate in this one. The first guy on the right hand side is a ganger named Flesh Stick. He's got furnace plates, he's also armed with a renderizer, he's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, and he's also packing a stem slug stash. And right next on the left hand side, that is Necro-Cola, which is a Forgeborn. So we're actually using some, this is actually kind of a neat battle report because my Brother Grimm decided to actually use some of the elements from the game supplement House of Chains, which is the new supplement that has been released for House Goliath players. So because of that, one of the new guys are called Forgeborn, and Forgeborn are kind of like juvies who are trying to prove themselves to become members of the gang, and so because of that, he decided to use that miniature. So this looks really cool. So you'll be seeing Forgeborn rules being used in this one for the House of Chains rule pack. Anyways, Necro-Cola, he's armed with furnace plate, he's got a storm welder, he's also got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, he's also got the hot head as well as fast learner special rules attached to him as well. And that makes up Brother Grimm's deployment for this one. On the left-hand side of the deployment zone is the deployment for the Prophets of Rage. Unfortunately for my friend Iron Major, he was only able to roll up 1 member of his gang to actually be here. It's one of his skinners. His name is Loken Flay is his name. He's equipped with a skinner's mask. He's got plate mail for armor. He's armed with parrot, butcher's, chain cleavers. He's also got the specialist rule as well as Berserker Charge, a special rule as well. So that'll be making up Iron Major's deployment for this one. On the top of the deployment area, this is for my buddy Sergeant Sigmarine, and this is the deployment for the Sleeping Dogs. Up on the left-hand side there, he has Miss Spectre, which is one of his gangers. She's equipped with flak armor, she's got photo goggles, as well as a last gun and a last pistol, and she also has hot shot power packs for both those weapons, and she also has gun shrouds for both of those weapons as well. And on the right-hand side is our second ganger, that's Slight. He's armed with flak armor, photo goggles, he's got twin auto pistols with gun shrouds, he's also got frag grenades as well. And that makes up Sergeant Sigmarine's deployment for this one. He managed to get 2 members of his gang to participate in this battle report. And lastly, on the right-hand side of the deployment area, we have the Killjoys of House Escher. This is my friend Lady Domina's little kill team. On the top there, that is Trixie. She's a ganger who's armed with flak armor. She's got a last gun, chain sword, last pistol, as well as frag grenades. On the left-hand side, that is Yoko the Pyro. She's a ganger who's equipped with flak armor. She's got a grenade launcher with frag and crack grenades. She's also got a power sword as well as stiletto knife. She's also equipped with a drop rig and as well as packing Kim Synth. And right next on the right-hand side is Cinder. She's a ganger who's armed with flak armor. She's got a Nightshade Kim Thrower, stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as Kim Synth. And that pretty much makes up my friend Lady Domina's deployment on the right-hand side. And it should also be noted that my buddy Sergeant Sigmarine decided to use his generatorium that he has for one of his territories to put blackout conditions on the entirety of the battlefield as well. And in case you're unfamiliar with blackout conditions, what ends up happening is that the vision arc for all the players is actually limited to only 3 inches, which means you can't shoot at anything or charge at anything unless you can see it within that 3-inch gap. Now, if you have photo goggles, like the Delaques do, you can totally see 12 inches ahead of you. But that's it. Everybody else is 3 inches. And it's kind of funny because the only people with photo goggles on this one are the Delaques. The Crazed Cannibals, all the other gang members don't have it, so they'll be playing in the dark while the Delaques are sneaking around and shooting people. So it's a very, very sneaky move and actually a really brilliant move made by my buddy Sergeant Sigmarine on this one. So with the deployment over with, as well as the blackout additions all planned out, we now go directly to the top of turn number 1, and all for my friends roll up for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Corpse Grinder Cult gets the initiative on this one, so my friend Iron Major will be going first. And I'm just going to let you guys know, for this one, I just took photos of all the gangs after they moved, because that's all anyone did there this turn. They just maneuvered to get into position in order to get out of the way of the zombies, which makes kind of sense because no one wants to be swarmed by flesh-eating Crazed Cannibals. So first of all, Iron Major decided to do a double movement with his guy Loken Flay, who gets all the way to the top of the platform there in the middle of the table, so that way he's got a good elevated position to limit the number of Crazed Cannibals that can come after him. At exactly the same time, Brother Grimm also does double movements of both Flesh Stick as well as Necro-Cola, and both those guys move up all the way to the top of the fuel tank tower, right in the center of the battlefield, so that way they have a good elevated position to limit the advance of enemy Crazed Ghouls coming after them. Sergeant Sigmarine does exactly the same thing with Miss Spectre and Slight, doing double movements to get to the top of this shanty to make sure they get away from the Crazed Cannibals. And Lady Dama does exactly the same thing with all three of her gang members, with Trixie, Yoko, the Pyro, as well as Cinder, doing double movements to get to the top of this roof of this shanty to get out of the way of the Crazed Cannibals. And that pretty much makes up my friend's action phase for this one. So with the action phase over with, you go directly to the end phase, and more importantly, we go to the phase of the Crazed Cannibals get to move. So we go directly to the end phase, and as you can see here, the Crazed Cannibals start moving, and these are the guys I'll be participating. So you can see I have this little 7-man team of Crazed Ghouls. They move up their double movements, moving up maximum movement 12 to get to the corner of the base of the fuel tank tower, because I plan on sending half of those guys up the bridge to go after Look and Flay from the Corpse Grinder cults. At the same time, send the other half up the fuel tank tower to go after the members of House Goliath. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the battlefield, you can see the Crazed Ghouls start making double movements to ready to start surrounding the Killjoys. Half of them go up the command center there on the right-hand side to go across the walkway to head directly to the Killjoys. Another half of them go to the base of the building to start climbing up the side of the shanty in order to do exactly the same thing. And over here in the center, on the top of the battlefield, you can see that some more of the ghouls are doing exactly the same thing. Half of the team, 3 of them, just kind of climb to the roof of the shanty there to intercept the Killjoys on the other side, while the other 4 move to the base of the shanty that the Delaque members are hiding on top of. And on the right hand side of the battlefield, I send 3 of the Crazed Cannibals to the base of the walkway right outside the metro terminal, because they plan on moving up that walkway and heading towards Look and Flay in the later segments of the battle. And another 4 of these Crazed Cannibals move directly into the Precinct 13 Enforcer building to the left-hand side, so that way they can move up the floors and directly to the roof, because there's a walkway from the roof of the Precinct 13 all the way to the fuel tank tower. And that pretty much makes the move phase for the action phase, rather, for the Crazed Cannibals. So that being said, that takes directly to the end of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 1, so that way you can see exactly what's going on over the course of the entire battlefield. As you can see, the 3 members of the gangs, 2 members of the gangs actually have members on the top of the shanties down the upper left-hand corner. We got the Delaques in the center, as well as the Killjoys to the left. You can also see Look and Flay there on the top of the walkway, right in the middle of that catwalk. He's in the top section there, taking cover there, and the Goliaths are hiding on the roof of the fuel tank tower. At the same time, I have Ghouls and Crazed Cannibals moving in for the left-hand side, getting ready to climb those shanties to go after the gang members there. I got Ghouls running to the center, to the base of the fuel tank tower. I got Ghouls going to the upper right-hand corner to climb the walkway to engage Look and Flay. At the same time, I got Ghouls going through the Precinct 13 building on the bottom right-hand corner, so that way they can assault across that walkway directly to the fuel tank as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for this one. So with turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Corpse Grinder cult manages to get the initiative on this one again. So because the Iron Mage will be going first, he activates Look and Flay, who does a double movement to move up the move down the length of the walkways, heading directly to the bottom left-hand corner towards the Tower of Terror. He actually spends 1 movement to move across the gantry walkway, and another movement to actually climb up the top level and to move again. So that way, if he needs to, he can escape across the boardwalk over there, you can see on the right-hand side, to get to the fuel tank tower, or continue his way to the Tower of Terror on the left-hand side as well. And that pretty much makes up his activation for the entire turn, because he only has 1 fighter on the table. Meanwhile, Sergeant Sigmarine then activates Miss Spectre, who decides to break the truce by taking a simple action to take aim with her last gun, and another basic action, open fire with her hotshot last gun directly into Look and Flay. Unfortunately for Sergeant Sigmarine, though, Miss Spectre did miss her shot, so because of nothing much really happens there, and Iron Major just begrudgingly grins at Sergeant Sigmarine, knowing that they are no longer be allies in this case, and that's pretty much every gang for themselves. So with that, Lady Dama then goes next, and she decides to activate Cinder. Cinder the Ganger moves up to the left-hand side of the battlefield, does a normal moon allowance, and opens fire with her Kim Shade thrower directly into the 3 ghouls crossing the walkway. She does pop her Kim Synth in order to increase her chances of wounding, but unfortunately for her, though, she does fail her intelligence check. However, the template, though, manages to hit all 3 of those ghouls in the walkway. It puts serious injuries on 2 of the ghouls, which is kind of cool, and unfortunately the 3rd one, though, is perfectly fine, because each of the ghouls have True Grit, Unstoppable, as well as Nerves of Steel skills. So because of that, that 3rd one passes Nerve of Steel, so he doesn't get pinned. But the other 2, though, are seriously injured, which are bad spots for them, because all that ends up happening is that the Eschers need to move in, finish them off the coup de grace, and they earn themselves some bonus points at the same time. From there, we move into Brother Grimm's turn. He then activates Nico Colo, who does a double movement to go around the fuel tank directly to the boardwalk that leads from the fuel tank tower to the roof of the Precinct 13 Metro building. And with that, we go back to Sergeant Sigmarin, who then activates Slight. Slight moves up to the edge of the building and says a simple action to throw his frag grenade down to the pit below to where 4 of the ghouls are located at. Manages to throw the grenade right in the middle of all of them, so because that, all 4 of those ghouls are caught directly into the blast radius of his frag grenade. For the most part, though, it was kind of a mixed result. He did manage to put 2 serious injuries on the Crazed Cannibals, but the other 2 managed to pass their nerves of steel tech, so because of that, they're not pinned, and they can still cause all kinds of problems later on. The only thing they have going for them right now, of course, is that they have photo goggles for the House Delaque guys, so they can gauge a distance while everybody else can't. From there, we then go on to Lady Domina. Lady Domina then activates Yoko the Pyro, who moves up her basic action forward, so that way she's within a 3-inch arc to open fire with her grenade launcher, and she opens fire with frag grenades from her grenade launcher directly into the little 3-man posse of ghouls on the top of that shanty roof. In the end, she managed to put serious injuries on all 3 of them. One of them just kind of crashed right there on the top of the roof, while the other 2 were actually blown off the top of the roof, and they suffered their serious injuries when they hit the ground. So because of that, that kind of clears the way for Lady Domina's Killjoys. From there, we go back to Brother Grimm and the Goliath of the Pelago-Slam King, and Brother Grimm actually does only one simple action. He just moves Flesh Stick over to the base of the stairs, so that way he's standing there by himself. That way, whenever ghouls or Crazed Cannibals plan on coming up the gantry walkway, up the little ladder there, to get to the roof of the fuel tank tower, he'll be able to engage those guys one-on-one in close combat. And that's the only action he really does with that character. As for the very last activation of the phase, Lady Domina then activates her last ganger, Trixie. Trixie does a basic movement to go to the other side, to move to the edge of the shanty roof there, and then she sends another basic action to toss a frag grenade down to the ghouls below. Manages to get a good hit on that one and manages to explode outward as well, engulfing those ghouls in a heavy flame shower of shrapnel, which is actually kind of cool. For the most part, though, it was pretty lackluster. All she did manage to do was a push back through the ghouls an inch because the knockback rolled from her frag grenade. However, she was actually able to put one of them out of action, netting herself a bonus experience point, which is actually kind of nice. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase, and since nobody's injured, we skip the recovery rolls, and since nobody has any ball tests, we skip that phase as well. And we go to the main meat of the event, which of course is the Crazed Cannibal phase. Alright, so we go directly to the end phase on this one, and as you can see, I start maneuvering these Crazed Cannibals into position. I send a couple of them over to the left-hand side, making their way up the catwalk, so that way they can start engaging Look and Flay, while another 3 more reinforcements move in to start assaulting the fuel tank tower on the right-hand side. I also send 2 more ghouls who manage to deploy on this battlefield. They send them directly to the left-hand side of the catwalk to the far end of it, between the Tower of Terror as well as Loken, so that way these guys can kind of head him off at the pass and hopefully surround and kill the member of the Corpse Grinder cults. A bunch of ghouls managed to assault and do dome movements up the shanty walkway. Now, because of the blackout rules, I really couldn't charge these ghouls inward because I can only charge something that's within 3 inches. So because of that, all these ghouls can do is actually just move up into position. Now, granted, they're about an inch away from the members of the House Escher Killjoys, but they can't charge until the next activation phase because they have to be within 3 inches in order to charge their targets, because that's the way the blackout rules work. So they're just getting in position in order to attack the Killjoys. And I do exactly the same thing on the top of the shanties here, sending a couple more ghouls climbing up to the top of the shanty to make their way directly into the Killjoys. And I do exactly the same thing here in the center of the battlefield. A couple of the ghouls manage to climb up the shanty in order to start engaging the Delaques, while the other 2 on the bottom just kind of lamber around a bit, trying to make their way directly to the center of the battlefield. On the top right-hand corner of the battlefield, 3 of the ghouls do double movements to climb all the way to the roof of the catwalk, so that way they can start moving down the length of it and attacking Loke and Flay. Another ghoul also deploys and makes his way directly to the first floor of the Precinct 13 building, so that way he can begin the long trip climbing up the building to the rooftop. And finally, 4 ghouls that went into the Precinct 13 building at the beginning of the game have finally made their way up to the rooftop, and they make it their way to the deck to the top. So there where they can cross that walkway directly to the fuel tank and start engaging the Goliath as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 2. As you can see, the ghouls are slowly making their way directly towards the different gang members on the roofs of the shanties there in the top left-hand corner. I got a bunch of them swarming that catwalk in order to try and engage Loke and Flay. I also have a couple assaulting from the right-hand side from the roof of the Precinct 13 building directly to the top of the fuel tank tower. And that pretty much makes up the turn number 2 for this one. So with turn 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3, and once again, Iron Mage gets to go first on this one. He managed to take the priority, and he does a double movement with Loken Flagon. Runs him from the top of the catwalk directly to the left-hand side, making his way to the Tower of Terror, which makes sense for him to run all this much. And the reason why is because he only has the one fight on the table. This guy has to survive, because it's not like he can engage in close combat where he can be killed. You know, he has to keep on moving so that way he doesn't get killed. So because of that, he keeps running directly to the Tower of Terror in the bottom left-hand corner. From there, we then go directly to the my friend Brother Grimm of House Goliath. He decides to activate Nico-Cola. Nico-Cola moves across the bridge there, moving up his 5 inches because he's a prospect. That brings within 3 inches for him to open up with his Storm Welder directly into these 4 ghouls right across from him. And if you haven't seen the power of a Storm Welder yet from that book, The House of Chains, you're about to see exactly how powerful that weapon really is. And kaboom! As you can see right here, he opens up directly with that Storm Welder into these 4 ghouls and puts serious injuries on all 4 of them. Now, in case you're unfamiliar how a Storm Welder works, what ends up happening is the Storm Welder fires 3 rapid-fire dice worth of shots directly into any targets within range. Now, the only problem with this weapon is one thing. It has what's called the Reckless Special Rule, which means that it hits anything that is in the forward arc of the firing weapon. So that means it doesn't matter. It just hits anybody. If you have friends in the way, it hit that. And the reason why is because what you do is you actually randomly determine where the shots end up going when you actually open fire with this weapon. So for example, if there was another Goliath fighter there in the upper left-hand corner or whatever, he could have accidentally shot one of his own Goliath guys as well. Luckily for my friend Brother Grimm though, when he opened fire with his gun, he actually got 6 shots off with this thing. He put 2 in the first 2 and the rest were going in the back is what ended up happening. So because that, he opens up with this thing. However, the Storm Welder is a very powerful weapon. It is strength 5, so because that's very, very devastating. At the same time, it also has shock abilities, so if you manage to get a 6 on it, you'll be able to cause all kinds of problems. Unfortunately, there are some side effects, of course, to this. It has the unstable rule. However, it does have an ammo roll of check of 3 when you get those, so, you know, not bad, all things considered. But as you can see that one, Nico-Cola just unloads and manages to put all 4 of those guys down in one fell swoop, which is absolutely fantastic. So from there we go to Sergeant Sigmarine, then activates Miss Spectre. Miss Spectre charges directly into one of the ghouls, engages them in close combat as well, so the 2 of them will be fighting. And during the combat, Miss Spectre managed to take the barrel of her last pistol with a hot-shot power pack, sticking to the mouth of the ghoul, open fire, and presto changeo, he is now dead and out of action, netting herself an additional experience point. She also pulls back from engaging it 2 inches, that way she can square off against the ghoul that's facing Slight. So from there we go directly to Lady Domina. Lady Domina then activates Cinder, who goes charging directly into the ghoul right in front of her to go along that gantry walkway from that plank from the roof of the shanty to the command center on the left-hand side. And Cinder plays Russian roulette with the bad guy, popping a dum-dum round directly into the head of the ghoul, manages to put that guy directly out of action, and also engaging, getting herself a bonus experience point. She then follows through, of course, and goes directly into the ghoul right in front of her, which she can then finish off in the next turn with a coup de grace. From there, we go to Brother Grimm, and Brother Grimm decides to activate Fleshstick, who decides that he's going to stick with Nico-Cola, because you saw how powerful that Storm Welder worked. He does a dual move to go around the sides of the fuel tank in order to get on that walkway, and he's right behind Nico-Cola, making his way directly to the roof of the Precinct 13 command building. Meanwhile, Sergeant Sigmarine then goes next. He then activates Slight, who charged directly into the ghoul in front of him, but unfortunately though, he flubs his attack rolls. And the reason why is because each of these Crazed Cannibals have toughness 4, and Slight, while he does have twin auto pistols as his weapon, auto pistols are only strength 3, so because of that, he fails to wound. So because of that, both this Crazed Cannibal as well as Slight are still engaged together in close combat. So with that, the rest of the activation phase is actually left for Lady Domina. Lady Domina has the only member with fighters left in the battlefield, so she gets to go next. The first thing she does, of course, she charges Trixie directly into the nest of ghouls right in front of her to engage those Crazed Cannibals in close combat. And she manages to saw the head off one of those ghouls with her chainsword, puts that guy out of action, netting herself a bonus experience point, and then she follows through, of course, to engage the other ghouls as well in close combat. From there, then she activates Yoko the Pyro, who moves back her normal mood allowance to get within range with the other ghoul. So, in case you're wondering, Trixie's engaged with the ghoul that's armed with the Scythe, is who she's engaged in close combat with, while the other one with bare hands is not engaged with her. So because of that, she then takes Yoko the Pyro to open fire with a crack grenade this time, going directly to the center of mass of that ghoul. Not only does she manage to hit him, she also managed to wound him as well, blowing him clear off the roof all the way directly to the ground. She actually put 2 out of action results on him, one from the crack grenade, and I think another one came from actually hitting the ground as well. But in the case though, she managed to put that ghoul out of action, nets herself a bonus spirit point as well. And that pretty much makes it the action phase on this one. So the action phase, we go directly to the end phase, we skip bottle tests because no one's been gone out of action yet, we skip recovery because nobody has injuries, and we go directly to the fun part where we talk about the Crazed Cannibals. So from there, as you can see here, a lot of the Crazed Cannibals start moving double movements along the catwalks directly to Loken Flay. Now luckily for Iron Major though, these ghouls did not see him within the vision arc when they did their double movements, so because of that they could not charge him. But as you can see though, he is being chased right now by 6 ghouls, which is absolutely terrifying. I then move up the reinforcing ghouls over to the right hand side directly to the base of the fuel tank tower, getting ready to climb that ladder to make their way up to deal with the Goliath at the top of the fuel tank. I'm not sure how this zombie here with the spine showing is going to do it, but you know, they'll find a way. And that's occurring, 3 more zombies manage to climb up the walkway, up the ladder, all the way to the top of the fuel tower, making their way directly towards the Goliaths. And as you see here, one of the ghouls actually does manage to make a recovery. He managed to get back onto his feet, while the other 3 are currently down. As at the same time, you can see that the ghoul that was in the ground floor has made his way all the way up to the roof. So because of that, 2 more ghouls are ready to fight. 3 more ghouls that are on the top of the walkways do a double movement along the catwalk, making their way directly towards Loken Flay to cut him off from behind. Meanwhile, more ghouls start assaulting the roof of the shantytown as well. As you can see, one of the ghouls managed to climb up to the top, where Slight is actually still engaged in combat with another Crazed Cannibal. Another Crazed Cannibal also moves into the base of the building to make his way up that shanty to do exactly the same thing. However, the most dramatic move is over here in the top of the battlefield. As you can see, a huge line of these Crazed Cannibals are making a conga line across that catwalk directly towards Yoko the Pyro, so that's absolutely terrifying. As you see in this photo, another Crazed Cannibal managed to climb to the roof of the shantytown, getting ready to engage itself with Trixie as well. Meanwhile, you can see that Yoko the Pyro is ready to take out those 2 Crazed Cannibals right in front of her, with Coup de Grace as well. However, that's not the most dramatic thing that ended up happening during this phase. The most dramatic thing that ended up happening is that we roll a d6. My buddy Sergeant Sigmund has to roll a d6 for his Generatorium. Now, on a roll of 1 through 5, blackout conditions keep on happening on the battlefield. However, if you roll a 6, which is a 1 to 6 chance of actually doing, the power flickers back on, the lights turn back on again, and the blackout conditions go away. And as you can see in this photo, a 6 was rolled, so because of that, blackout conditions are no longer in effect, which means that everybody can now see everyone, and that's where the real fun begins. And that pretty much ends up the turn for this one. So here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 3 of the entire battlefield. As you can see, the ghouls are now within good charging distance of all the members of the gangs. And to make matters worse, the only thing that was keeping these guys from being overran and being engaged all at once for close combat was the blackout results from the Generatorium being cut off. But now, as you can see, the Generatorium rules are no longer there because the power has flickered on, the lights have all powered up again. So now the ghouls are within good charging distance to start charging in everywhere. So now my friends have a lot of their work cut out for them, because the next phase, all these Crazed Cannibals are coming after them. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Delaque this time. So Sergeant Sigmund managed to get the priority on this one, and the first thing that he does, of course, is send Slight charging into the ghoul that's right behind. Sorry, not Slight. Charges Miss Spectre. There we go. Into the ghoul that's right behind Slight, so that way that guy doesn't get caught in a pincer attack. And once again, Miss Spectre managed to finish off that Crazed Cannibal with a headshot with a hot shot last pistol. So because of that, guy goes directly out of action, earning another experience point for Miss Spectre. And of course, Miss Spectre overruns directly into the ghoul with the Scythe, so that way Slight has additional bonuses to help him out fight against that guy in close combat. Meanwhile, Brother Grimm gets to go next. He decides to activate Nico-Cola. Nico-Cola moves across the walkway directly into the roof of the Precinct 13 building and turns to face these 4 ghouls. And once again, he cuts loose with the Storm Wielder. And he manages to put 3 of the ghouls directly out of action. It was all kinds of awesome. What ended up happening is that my buddy Brother Grimm rolled a 6 for his shot. I think he rolled 7 shots is what he ended up doing. Got really, really lucky that no ammo roll checks came up during those 7 shots, but it was absolutely fantastic. So that's what ended up happening, and the best thing about it is with a shock weapon, if you roll a 6 to hit, it automatically wounds. So because of that, 3 of these guys go directly out of action, earning 3 experience points for Nico-Cola, which is not a bad exchange. So that part is absolutely fantastic. From there we go to Lady Domina. Lady Domina then of course activates Cinder. Cinder does a coup de grace and manages to finish off the ghoul that was in front of her. She then follows through the second ghoul and does another simple action to finish him off with another coup de grace. Kills that second Crazed Cannibal and does another follow through to end up on the roof of the command center, at the same time putting 2 Crazed Cannibals out of action and netting herself 2 additional experience points as well, which is absolutely fantastic. And then from there we go back to Iron Major. Iron Major activates Loken Flay, who does a double movement to finally get off the catwalk, and also does another basic movement to move up the top of the catwalk, up the Tower of Terror rather, onto the roof of it. So you can see there he's now on the roof of the Tower of the Terror, and he's squaring off to deal with any Crazed Cannibals that manage to climb up to that little platform there, and he plans to fight those guys in close combat. From there we go back to Sergeant Sigmarine, and unfortunately for him, he flubs his attack rolls once again with Slight. Even with the bonuses he gets from his Spectre to help him out, wasn't able to do anything against this ghoul. The ghoul of course wasn't able to do anything back either, so they're both currently stuck in close combat, which is really a bad thing for them because the end phase is coming up and they can easily be swarmed now if they're not careful. For Brother Grimm's final activation, then activates Flesh Stick. Flesh Stick, of course, charges directly into the ghoul, to the Crazed Cannibal that's right there on the rooftop, charges into him and finishes him off with a coup de grace real quick, netting himself an additional experience point and also clearing off the rooftop of any ghouls. So with that, the rest of the turn, of course, is dedicated to Lady Dominic, because she's the only one who has any fighters left. She then activates Trixie. Unfortunately, Trixie flubs her rolls against the zombies. At the same time, the zombies also fail to do anything back to her. At the same time, she then activates Yoko the Pyre, moves up forward her normal moon allowance, and turns around, opens fire with her frag grenade from her grenade launch directly into the ghouls along that catwalk to the right-hand side. And she manages to hit the first 2 zombies along that catwalk. It doesn't really do anything to them in terms of injuries, however, it does blow them off the catwalk onto the ground. The one with the spine exposed crashes to the roof of the car down below, and the second one crashes to the ground and goes out of action as a result of that. So because of that, my friend Lady Domina earns another experience point for Yoko the Pyro. And that pretty much makes it the activation phase for the action phase on this one. So the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase for the Crazed Cannibals. And finally, I did get some good rolls for reinforcements for the Crazed Cannibals coming onto the battlefield. As you can see here, the Crazed Cannibals start moving directly towards those catwalks in the center of the battlefield, so that way they can start surrounding people. A huge wave of them start climbing up the top of the Tower of Terror, all the way to the very top of the roof, with 3 of them getting ready to charge into Loken Flayed in the next end phase. A bunch of them charge directly into the back of Slight, engaging him in close combat, which is absolutely fantastic as well. Crazed Cannibals move across from the catwalk, from the center catwalk along that boardwalk directly to the roof of the fuel tank, and other ones start swarming across the boardwalk, heading directly to the right hand side where the rest of the Pelago-Slam King is located on the roof of the Precinct 13 building. One of them charges directly into Flesh Stick, but unfortunately for it, though, it does flub its attack, so not much really comes from there. A huge wave of Crazed Cannibals start making their way directly to the ground floor of the Precinct 13 building, and they plan on climbing up during their next turn in order to get to the rooftop. And as you can see in this picture, another wave of Crazed Cannibals charge directly into Trixie and also engage her in close combat as well. And unfortunately for Lady Domina, there just were too many Crazed Cannibals attacking Trixie. They do manage to put her out of action with an out cold result. So because of that, she will no longer be participating in the battle report, and the first blood goes directly to the Crazed Cannibals, because now one of the members of the Killjoys is now out of action. And that pretty much makes us directly to the end of the turn. So here's the end of turn number 4. There's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, and as you can see, the pressure is now on, so the ghouls can now see what they're charging into. The Crazed Cannibals are starting the attack. The Pelago-Slam Kings are on the bottom right hand corner of the battlefield, on the roof of the Precinct 13 building, trying to hold off as best they can. On the bottom left hand corner, Loken Flays on the roof of the Tower of Terror, getting ready to deal with any ghouls that might come his way. The Killjoys are fighting right now on the shanties on the left hand side, and the Delaques of the Sleeping Dogs are doing exactly the same thing in the center of the battlefield as well. And more Crazed Cannibals are just pouring in each turn afterwards. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5, and my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 5, and the Goliath this time managed to get the priority, so Brother Grimm will be going first. And the first thing he does, of course, is activate Nico Cola. His prospect, of course, glows on top of the walkway there, so that way he gets a good line of sight directly at these 3 Crazed Cannibals. And once again, he unloads real fast with his Stormbolter directly into the 3 of them. And as you can see, he caused all kinds of damage. The zombie on the left-hand side, he actually put out of action before it fell off the walkway, but it just looked kind of cool, looking like the fact that it got blown off that bridge. The second one took a serious injury, but then they took an out-of-action result when it suffered from the fall, while the third one, of course, on the top of the armored car, suffered 2 serious injuries and is laying right there. So, net 2 more experience points for Necro-Cola of House Goliath. Lady Dama goes next, so the first thing she does is activate Yoko the Pyro. Yoko the Pyro moves over to the left-hand side, her normal movement allowance, and turns 180 to open fire with her grenade launcher at that mob of Crazed Cannibals on the rooftop of the shanty. The grenade lands Sarah Mass, and as you can see here, blown up a lot of them. Actually, 4 of the Crazed Cannibals gets blown off the rooftop and fall directly to the ground down below. All 4 of those guys suffer serious injuries. I think 2 of them suffered flesh wounds, but they suffered serious injuries when they hit the ground flying off the rooftop. While the one there in the center of the thing, he gets pushed back into the center of the shanty, and he also suffers an out-of-action result, netting another experience point for Yoko the Pyro. So up next is my friend Sergeant Sigmarine, who then activates Miss Spectre, who goes in close combat with a zombie. But unfortunately for her, though, she fails her attack. So because her attacks are flubbed, and so because of that, she's still stuck in close combat with these Crazed Cannibals. And Iron Major managed to finish off 2 of these zombies using his paired chain cleavers. He actually managed to put 1 attack on each of them and put them both out of action result with those chain cleavers. Absolutely devastating. Netting himself 2 experience points as well. He then follows through, of course, the left-hand side to face off against that third one on the top of the landing there. So Brother Grimm goes next. He decides to activate with Flesh Stick. Flesh Stick goes charging directly into the zombie that's on the ground and finishes him off with the coup de grace. Then follows through the second zombie right there in the middle of the rooftop. And for Lady Dominus Fauna activation, she then activates Cinder. Cinder does a run and then leaps across from the command center directly to the first level of the Tower of Terror. She manages to stick that landing passing her initiative test, and she makes her way up the side of the Tower of Terror directly to the top. And for the very last action of the action phase on this one, Sergeant Sigmarine then activates Slight, and then finally Slight manages to put that Crazed Cannibal is fighting in close combat out of action. Both Miss Spectre as well as Slight break contact real quick and fall through 2 inches in order to escape those guys right in the middle of the shanty town as well. And that pretty much makes up the action phase on this one. And since nobody's out of action right now, no one's taking any bottle tests or serious injuries, we go directly to the end phase for the Crazed Cannibals. So once again, the Crazed Cannibals managed to move up to the top of the Tower of Terror there in order to try to swarm up against Look and Flay for Iron Major's Prophets of Rage. More Crazed Cannibals arrive on the scene to the base of the catwalk as these Crazed Cannibals move across it, trying to make their way up the upper levels of the Tower of Terror. More Crazed Cannibals from the gantry walkway finally make it across that bridge directly to the top of the fuel tank, while other Crazed Cannibals from the other end of the top start making their way towards the boardwalk there, heading directly to the Precinct 13 rooftop. Another huge wave of Crazed Cannibals finally make it to the rooftop of the Precinct 13 building. As you see, there's like 6 of them getting ready to swarm directly towards Flesh Stick. 5 more Crazed Cannibals arrive up on the tabletop on the right-hand side, and so because of that, they run directly to the ground level of the Precinct 13, and just like before, they will try to do the double movement their next turn to make it to the top of the ceiling of the Precinct 13 rooftop. Meanwhile, on the top of the battlefield, more Crazed Cannibals surge the rooftop, charging directly into Slight as well as Miss Spectre. Unfortunately for those Crazed Cannibals, though, they fail their rolls, so those guys are now currently engaged in close combat, so at least they're bogged down at this point. And finally, a huge conga line of Crazed Cannibals are making their way across the gun-marked shanty towards the boardwalk directly towards Yoko the Pyro. Another huge swarm also on the ground level making their way directly to the command center as well. And that pretty much brings us to the end of turn number 5. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, exponentially more and more Crazed Cannibals are showing up on the table to attack these players. They're swarming across boardwalks, across gantry walkways, on the roof of buildings, and these players have their work really cut out for them because now even more Crazed Cannibals have arrived on the scene, and they're going to try to do their very best to make it to round 9, or at least be the last gang standing. So that being said, that ends turn number 5. We go directly to the top of turn number 6, and my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so it takes us directly to the top of turn number 6 for House Delaque. So my buddy started assuming we would go first, and once again he activates Miss Spectre to fight against the Crazed Cannibal as she's engaged in close combat. Unfortunately for her, though, she does manage to hit the cannibal, but unfortunately she fails to wound, so because of that she's still bogged down in close combat with these Crazed Cannibals, which is a bad spot to be in because eventually they're going to get swarmed. Meanwhile, Iron Major goes next. We go directly to the top of the Tower of Terror. As you can see in this one, Iron Major does put a serious out-of-action result directly onto the zombie he was fighting against earlier. But instead of backing up, though, Iron Major decides he's going to commit and move forward. And the reason why that was the case is because the zombies failed its willpower check to attack him the first time ago. So Iron Major's banking on the fact that these guys won't pass their willpower checks. Hopefully he can withstand the blows because they won't be able to hit him. And he can just counterattack and just slice them up all day. Meanwhile, my friend Brother Grim then decides to activate Necro-Cola, who moves back 5 inches directly to the top of the Precinct 13 rooftop, and he squares off against those zombies that are moving away across the ceiling there, directly towards the to the other members of the members of the House Goliath, and he decides to cut loose once again with his Storm Welder. And this time he managed to get 5 shots off this time. Unfortunately, though, he did roll an ammo check, so because that his gun is temporarily out of ammo for right now, he'll have to roll again next turn to see if he reloads. The problem with that, though, is that the Storm Welder does have an unstable character weapons trait for its ammo rolls, which means that he has to roll a 1 through 3. If he manages to pass his ammo test, he's perfectly fine. But if he fails his ammo test, however, he will go out of action with a serious injury, representing the fact the weapon will blow up. So that part's kind of scary. But as you can see, he actually puts the hurt on these zombies. Managed to put 2 of them down with serious injuries and take 3 more out of action, which is absolutely insane. So because that nets us up with 3 more additional experience points, which is absolutely fantastic. So with that, we go back to Lady Dominant. Lady Dominant then activates Yoko the Pyro, who then falls back another 6 inches backwards, and then she turns around, opens fire with her grenade launcher directly into the center of the bridge. And as you see there, that bridge is now cleared off because the knockback rules knocked off most of the zombies from that walkway. Unfortunately for Lady Dominant, she did not get any out-of-action results. All she did, though, was just clear the bridge off of any Crazed Cannibals, buying herself some time. She put a lot of serious injuries, though. A lot of them came from the fall, but, them's the breaks at this point. Sergeant Sigmarine then goes next and activates Slight, and just like last time, Slight unfortunately fails his close combat attacks against the zombies, so because of that, he flubs his rolls, and he's still engaged in close combat with these Crazed Cannibals, which is a really bad spot for these 2 members of House Delaque to be in, because there's a huge wave of Crazed Cannibals coming their way, and they can easily be surrounded and devoured if they're not careful. And for Brother Grimm's last activation, he charges Flesh Stick forward, who then puts a coup de grace on one of the zombies laying on the ground, puts him out of action as a result, nets himself another point of experience. He then follows through and charges directly into the next Crazed Cannibal, engages that guy in close combat as well. So that being said, that pretty much ends the action phase for this one, and since no one has to take bottle tests and no one is injured right now, we skip the recovery phase and we go straight to the Crazed Cannibals at the end phase. And here we go in the bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield. Even more Crazed Cannibals show up. As you can see, they start climbing up the sides of the command center and getting ready to cut off Yoko the Pyro from behind. At the same time, a bunch of them move across the bridge. None of them actually charging Yoko the Pyro, so she's perfectly fine there. And so as you can see, that huge wave of craziness is coming her way. At the same time, more Crazed Cannibals run up the ramp on the back of the Tower of Terror, heading directly to try to cut off Cinder at the same time. So a lot of pursuits taking place on the bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield. And here's another shot showing more of the Crazed Cannibals wandering across the boardwalk, heading directly towards Yoko the Pyro as well, and all kinds of insanity is taking place over here. Meanwhile, in the center, though, all kinds of bad happens. The wave of Crazed Cannibals are coming their way, charge directly onto the top of the rooftop of the shantytown, managed to swarm both Miss Spectre as well as Slight, and put both those fighters out of action. Miss Spectre suffers an out cold result, and meanwhile, though, Slight suffers a humiliating injury. He goes directly into recovery and loses 1 point to his leadership as well as to his cool. And just like that, Sergeant Sigmarine has been eliminated from the competition. Meanwhile, on the top of the Tower of Terror, as you can see, another huge wave of Crazed Cannibals charge directly towards Loken Flay, and unfortunately for the zombies, the 3 zombies that try to attack them, all 3 fail their willpower tests. So because of that, they can't make any attacks because of the Skinner's Mask. So Loken Flay is standing perfectly fine. It was actually a pretty good break for Iron Major. It is funny because Iron Major doesn't need to take any nerve tests to counter her back. He could just, go insane, just start chopping up fools. At the same time, more Crazed Cannibals are making their way up the walkway directly towards Loken Flay, and this is a beautiful shot because you can see all this, the Crazed Cannibals running all over the place trying to get these guys. And at the same time, over here on the roof of the Precinct 13 building in the bottom right-hand corner, even more Crazed Cannibals show up on the rooftop, climbing up to the very top of the floor, getting ready to swarm Flesh Stick as well as Necro-Cola. At the same time, you got a bunch of Crazed Cannibals running across that bridge from the fuel tank tower directly to the top of Precinct 13. At the same time, I also set up a couple of Crazed Cannibals up the tanks of the MCI Chemical Works, and the reason why is because that bridge leads directly to the rooftop of Precinct 13, so I'm deciding to set a couple of cannibals that way, so that way I can cut off their exit so they can't escape. And finally, another batch of Crazed Cannibal makes it to the top of the catwalk here in the middle of the table, so that way they can run directly to the Tower of Terror or to the Precinct 13 building, whichever happens to be best. And with that, that takes directly to the end of turn number 6. As you can see here, a lot of zombies and a lot of Crazed Cannibals are charging directly towards the members of the Killjoys, as well as to the Pelago-Slam Kings, as well as the lone member of the Prophets of Rage. House Delaque Sleeping Dogs have been eliminated first, so they're out first to go. Now this next round, we're going to round number 7, and my friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Corpse Grinder cult, and as you can see in this photo, Iron Major puts the hurting down on these guys. Manages to put 2 of these zombies out of action, actually puts one a serious injury on him, and so because of that, he decides to break contact and move back 2 inches, so that way he can escape this wave of zombies, because it looks like what he's planning on doing is like sticking and moving is what he's basically doing. So he goes in, attacks, backs up a little bit to break contact, so that way they have to take willpower checks against every single time they try to attack him, which is actually a really good tactic in this case, so it's working out pretty well for him at this point. So with that, we then go to Lady Domina. Lady Domina then activates Cinder, who then runs to the top floor of the Tower of Terror, trying to escape the wave of zombies that are coming her way. And it's interesting because it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens, because Iron Major and Lady Domina have not talked about making an alliance. So if they do make an alliance, it'd actually be kind of cool to see exactly how that works out. Meanwhile, disaster finally strikes Brother Grimm. He decides to take an ammo check for his character, Nico Cola, because he got an ammo check icon the last time he started doing some shooting. So he starts with a simple action in order to reload, but unfortunately for him, though, when he rolled his ammo check, he rolled a 1. So because of that, the weapon pretty much explodes and puts him directly out of action, giving him an out cold result. So he got very lucky that his character, Nico Cola, didn't suffer any lasting injuries. At the same time, though, this guy took out way more zombies than he should have, because this guy was a beast in this game. So Nico Cola basically goes out of action, and that pretty much ends the activation for this turn. So with that, we go to Lady Domina's final turn. She does a double movement, moving across the rooftop of the command center, and then leaps across the roof of the command center to leaps the gap directly to the first floor of the Tower of Terror. She sticks the landing, manages to pass her initiative check, but unfortunately for her, though, that's the max she can do, and she has to survive the wave of zombies that are coming her way, which could be pretty bad for her. Meanwhile, Fleshstick finishes off the zombie he was engaged in close combat with, and does a quick follow through the second one and finishes him off with the coup de grace as well. Follows through another 2 inches to the left hand side in order to escape. Unfortunately, though, he's slowly being swarmed from 3 different directions with Crazed Cannibals, and no matter how good of a fighter Fleshstick is, I don't think he's going to survive this next round. And with that, that takes us directly to the end phase. You can see here the Crazed Cannibals decide to swarm Yoko the Pyro. They actually engage in close combat, manage to hit and wound her, and put a grievous injury directly onto her. So because of that, Yoko the Pyro goes out of action, and she goes directly into recovery, netting another loss for the Killjoys. Meanwhile, in the upper left-hand corner of the battlefield, a huge swarm of Crazed Cannibals move across the shanty as well as the roof of the command center, getting ready to jump the gap directly into the Tower of Terror to head upwards in order to deal with Loken Flay as well as Cinder. And in the end, Loken Flay finally falls. 2 zombies charge directly into him. One of them manages to get the attack off and manages to slip the wound through. So because of that, suffers an out cold result. So because of that, Loken Flay goes out of action, thus eliminating the Prophets of Rage from this scenario. And Fleshstick is swarmed by 5 or 6 zombies in the left-hand corner of the rooftop of the Precinct 13 building. He goes out of action as well. And for this one, he actually rolled really lucky on this one. He got an all-cold result as well, so no harm, no foul on that one. However, though, that's his last fighter, so because of the Goliaths are also eliminated from this scenario as well. And as you can see, that only leaves 1 woman left standing for this entire scenario, and that is Cinder from the Killjoys. So because of that, she's the only woman left standing on the entirety of the battlefield, and that takes us directly to the end of the game with a victory for the Killjoys of House Escher. Women are the last people standing on this one, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, as you can see, with only 1 person left standing. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post-game, because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time to talk about the post-game for each of the gangs. So starting off with the Sleeping Dogs. For the injuries, Miss Spectre and Slight were the 2 participants in the scenario. Miss Spectre suffered an out-cold result, and Slight suffered a humiliating injury originally, but the gang decided to use their Stinger Mold Sprawl territory instead to re-roll the injury. In this case, he actually got an out cold result instead, so Slight is perfectly fine on this one. For advancements, Miss Spectre leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to her toughness, so now she's toughness 4, while Slight leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his movement. From their territories, from their settlement, they earned 1 point of reputation, as well as 30 credits from that. From their Narco Den, they earned 25 credits from the Narco Den, and from their Stinger Mold Sprawl, they used to patch up Slight's humiliating injury and managed to transform it to an out cold result instead. At the trading post, they took 55 credits from their territories and decided to place all 55 credits into their stash from now. For their reputation, they earned 1 point of reputation from their settlement, bringing their grand total to 26 in total. Their new record for their gang now is at 5 wins and 8 losses, and the new gang rank now is at 2,571 points. So in third place is the Prophets of Rage for Iron Major. So for the injuries, only one suffered from the entire injury for the game because Loken Flay was the only participant. He suffered now cold results. However, he also leveled up to level 2, and he decided to use the Slaughterborn skills he decided to do as well, which adds, I believe it adds movement to his movement characteristics every single time he puts someone out of action as well. From his territory, he earns 1 point of reputation from his settlement, as well as recruited a brand new initiate. When he rolled his D6, he rolled a single D6 and rolled a 6 on that one, and he got a new initiate named Tavor Ghoul is his name. He also earned 30 credits from his territory as well, and from their fighting pit they get their 2 scummers as well as 2 points reputation. At the trading post, they purchased a stub gun with dum dum bullets as well as a boning sword for Tavor Ghoul, and added him to the roster as well. For their reputation, they earned 3 points of reputation from their territories, bringing their grand total reputation 18 points in total. Their new record now is at 1 win as well as 5 losses, and the new gang rank now is at 1,725 points. In second place, we have the Pelago-Slam Kings of House Goliath. For their injuries, both Fleshstick as well as Nico Cola leveled up to, got out cold results. For advancements, Fleshstick leveled to level 6, earning the Specialist special rule for him, so now he can choose his own specialties. At the same time, he also got +1 to his willpower. So back before he got the Specialist rule, he got +1 for his willpower on that one, and the second time, he got the Specialist rule as well. Nico Cola also leveled up to level 3 now. He started off at level 1, but leveled up twice. He got +1 to his Blissa skill, so now his Blissa skill 4 up, and he's also got +1 to his willpower as well. From their territories, from their settlement, they got 1 point of reputation from their settlement, and when Brother Grimm rolled his 2d6 to see what would happen, he actually recruited a brand new ganger, rolling boxcars on that one. That ganger's name is Kaz is his name. They also earned 30 credits from their settlement as well. From the Collapsed Dome, he decided to roll 4 d6 for his Collapsed Dome result, actually managed to get 120 credits when it was all said and done, so no doubles on that one, which is actually kind of nice. With that money, they decided to purchase a flamer, as well as furnace plate, as well as stub gun with dum dum rounds for Kaza, fully outcutting him. Their reputation now is at 1 point of reputation from their settlement, bringing their grand total 35 points. Their new record now is at 4 wins and 7 losses, and their new gang rank now is at 1,950 points. And in first place, winning this scenario, are the Killjoys of House Escher. From their injuries, only 2 members of the gang got injured. That was Trixie as well as Yoko the Pyro. Trixie got an out cold result, so she makes full recovery no problem, while Yoko the Pyro goes in recovery for a turn, suffering a grievous injury. For their advancements, Trixie leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to her willpower. Yoko the Pyro leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to her movement. And Cinder leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to her willpower as well. From their territories, from their settlement, they got 1 point of reputation as well as 50 credits. And from the Synth Stell, they also earned a point of reputation from that. For the territories, they managed to capture a Tech Bazaar, and with that Tech Bazaar, they earned 50 credits from that as well. In the end, they got a total of 100 credits from all their territories. They decided to place all 100 credits directly into their stash. From the reputation, they earned 2 points of reputation from their territories, as well as 2 points from the scenario, bringing their grand total of 34 points in total. Their new record now is at 5 wins and 6 losses, and the new gang rank now is at 2,004 points. So that's going to do it for this week, guys, for Battle Report number 53 of our Underhive Wars campaign. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.